Concerning sleeving the block, it appears that sleeving our block the way we wanted to do it, specifically boring it then sleeving it, is not wise. I have it on good authority, and our technical director put a kibosh on that idea because it will adversely affect our block, if I understand it correctly, and I think I do. It's more involved than that, but due to my inexperience on this subject matter, let's just leave it at that. After all, I'm just a gearhead with a penchant for V8s, and all I do is offer my opinion. This is how the sleeve idea came about. I took another engine to the machine shop, as I often do, and he asked how the target test motor went. And I told him about the phlegmoid in number 5 hole. Well, he had no idea what I was referring to because the block wasn't right in front of him. And that's when he said we could sleeve it. But now, in retrospect, our new plan is to lose the sleeve idea altogether. Bore it 30 over and move on. In addition to that plan, when I was measuring the rod side clearance the other day, I just did not like the feel of the press pin arrangement of the piston and rods. I even woke up the next morning asking myself, why was I still thinking about it? Well, with me anyway, that's usually when we implement a change. I am going to go with full floating pistons and rods. As is so often the case, things change, and they may change again before it finally gets done. You just change the plan and keep going. What else can you do? We'll get into the full floating advantage later on. A word about vents in the lifter valley. There are 3 schools of thought basically when it comes to installing vents or stands that they are sometimes referred to in the lifter valley. For us, it depends on the application, but for others it doesn't matter. They only do one of the 3 methods always, all the time. And the first is on an all-out race motor such as a circle track motor. Forget about the stands. These guys tap the hole and put 1/4-inch National pipe plugs in there, like you see on the right, plugging them completely off. They force the oil to return to the pan by the ground and blended and screened holes at the back and front of the block. They epoxy the screens in and a magnet to the block and call it a day. Now, some rundy-round rules state that you cannot run a roller cam, and you'll find that those guys, they always use a P55 cam core with steel face lifters, so they pay special attention to the hardness of each, and some claim they've never had a failure. The next group are guys who do the exact same thing as circle trackers and road racers as well, but they use the vents, and roller cams are their fancy. They say rollers don't require all the extra oil splashing around, and they say the stands vent the bottom end, and that must be true. And then there are the street strip guys. Now, most of these guys run rollers as well, but there are some who do not, like us. We are doing an experiment right now with what it takes to run a flat tappet correctly, with minimum rear for a bunch of miles. And some think that that is a waste of time, but we forge forward. By virtue of the fact that this group probably drove their cars to the racetrack to compete, they're under the impression, that stands are not required. Most say that if the cam didn't need that lubrication spilling in from those holes, GM wouldn't have put them there. They say their cams live longer with less wear, and they aren't concerned with what they call the minuscule amount of windage oil on the cam that is going to reduce horsepower. So what's a guy supposed to do? You take these three groups, you put them in a pot, you mix it around real good, you spill it on the table in front of you, and somewhere in that mix are you and I. Decisions. It always comes down to you making the right decision for your build. Whether it's a small block, big block, any GM, Ford, Mopar, LS, Hemi, what have you. Now, we are going to be running a solid flat tappet, so it's definitely food for thought. I wanted to mention that Milodon has a great Lifter Valley screen kit for Gen 1s. And it comes with 8 plugs if you decide to plug off those holes in the Lifter Valley, or they've got little screens that are preformed. You could just screen them and saving debris from getting into the bottom end, which is kind of cool. And they also have the front screens and the preformed rear screens with an epoxy kit. And that part number is MIL-23150, Summit part number. And we know that out there's a lot of younger guys and new guys and gals too, and they might be stuck on something, and they can always shoot somebody a comment, and they'll get an answer. Some people say if you ask a stupid question, you'll get a stupid answer. But over here at the 4 Flat Garage, we say the only stupid question is the one not asked. So if you're stuck, just ask somebody. Lots of help out here. And mind you, these engine building decisions are our opinions, but you're going to develop your own over time. We don't take anything lightly, and we check out all the claims for validity, and you might not be able to do everything you see on all the videos concerning engine building, and that's fine. Just pick out something between what you can do and what you can afford and what you are going to do, and that's it. That will be what is going to determine your build. As long as you made it better than how you found it, is what Richard Petty always said to do. It's fine. Just knowing what to do with what you're looking at is miles ahead of someone who is just an assembler of parts bought at the speed shop. A guy who buys the $13,000 motor and puts it in his rod is not the same as someone who builds an engine from the ground up, putting something of himself into the build. What's a guy going to do when his $13,000 mill breaks? He's not going to have a clue, really. But by you building it from the ground floor, you are going to have a pretty good idea where to start looking. And a lot of procedures are going on, and they have to be accomplished. And if you think of them in a group, it's mentally taxing and counterproductive. The key I have found is to break it down into more manageable proportions. You wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to concentrate on the teardown. But stop right there. That in and of itself is a very important procedure. You must stamp each rod and cap in its respective hole, 1357 down the driver's side and 2468 on the passenger side on a Gen 1. And then you check connecting rod side clearance with your feeler gauges and record it in your rebuild notebook before you unbolt anything once the oil pan is off. Now guess what? Here's a guy who didn't do that. And he's got all the rods and caps separated on the bench, and it's been 3 weeks because he got busy or had to go to work, and he mixed them up. Well, with you, they can't be mixed up because you stamped them while they were still connected to the crankshaft. Just put the cap on the rod with the corresponding number stamp. Disaster averted. Another good practice is to take a picture with your phone of the crank and rods, a nice well-lit close-up to refer to. It can really be a huge help.